We make and sell wax polish in our shop, and these make great gifts because they are so useful for a variety of things to keep around in the workshop or in the kitchen. So in today's video I want to share a bunch of different ways to use wax polish, some which you may be familiar with and some which you may not. And then most of these tips I use myself all the time. A couple, however, are new to me as well, so I thought we would try them out together. Number one, tool handles. Tool handles is one of those things where I don't want a slippery finish. So I don't want polyurethane or shellac or something that's gonna just kind of, glide out of my hand. So I want raw wood, but I want to condition the wood, right? Which is why wax polish is great for this. This, by the way, is our awl that we also make and sell in our shop. The awl here, for example, has wood, copper, and steel. It's great to treat all of these with wax polish. Whenever I have created a wooden project, no matter whether it is a tabletop or a box or a speaker, after finishing it with whatever finish I like, so polyurethane or shellac or something like that, once that has cured, then I'll add a final coat of wax polish to get it super smooth. I get a piece of fine steel wool, you don't even need this much, and I'll get our tung oil polish. You could use anything, but this one cures a little bit harder and nicer. When you use steel wool, you're basically doing a wet sanding. So you get the wetness from the wax, you get the abrasiveness from the steel wool, and then you just kind of work the wood. So you smooth out any bumps in the wood surface, in the finish, and you're left with a silky smooth surface. Then I let it sit for a couple of minutes and then just wipe any excess off. Next, preventing rust on metal. So rust just forms on metal in workshops all the time, especially if it's a little bit humid or damp. So what I like to do is to take our mineral oil wax polish, because this doesn't cure, it stays kind of wet, and I apply it on metal whenever I get a chance. I put it on our cast iron table saw table, bandsaw table, lathe, any metal surface. I also put it on smaller tools, hand tools like chisels. So this is something I like to do after I have like a sharpening session, for example. Once my chisel is nice and sharp, or my knives are nice and sharp, I just put a little wax polish and I put it on the blade, on all the metal. And that's it. Now it also will glide a little bit smoother, but I would just leave it a little bit waxy until it's ready to use. The other tool that this is useful for is your hand plane. I like to just put a little bit of wax polish on. Again, I use the mineral oil for this. This prevents rust and also makes it glide nicely. I also put it on the blade itself. Now you just have to be a little careful putting it back together because it is slightly slippery. The plane does move nice and smoothly when you have wax polish underneath. Here's a pretty good tip. We all have clamps that just kind of get a bit stuck. Right? Either they get glue on them or they get rust on them. So what we need is a product to prevent rust and prevent glue from sticking to the metal. Well, there you go. So just kind of clean it a little bit. Again, I'm using mineral oil wax polish. And get it in there properly. This type of clamp could also really use it on here, and sometimes much smoother. Okay, so you know you have a mason jar, and sometimes the lid gets really stuck because it gets kind of corroded on the inside. So here I have a jar of mineral spirits here in the shop. One thing you can do, if you know you're gonna have it sitting for a while, you're not gonna touch it, maybe it's a finish, and you can kind of get a weird like sticky finish on top, which is gonna make it stick even more, is to put mineral oil wax polish on the rim right here, as well as, on the lid if you want to, with the lid. Next we have one of my favorite uses of wax polish, and that is leather. So here, for example, I have my notebook, course, this is not a new leather. This has already been conditioned in the past. I like to kind of keep at it and add more conditioning every now and then. It makes the leather, you know, gives it a slightly darker color, makes it quite beautiful. I just finished some brand new leather, one of the eyeglass cases the other day. There you can really see what a color difference we get when we put a little bit of wax polish on raw leather. We use wooden drawer slides quite often when building projects instead of like metal drawer slides. And the thing about that is it works great, however, every now and then they can get slightly stuck. What you want to do is make sure that you put on mineral oil wax polish on the rails and on the drawers, and that way things will move quite smoothly. Then you can buy water protected fabric in the store, and you can pour like pure beeswax on fabric in order to create a super water resistant surface. But what if you just kind of want to protect your bag or your jacket or something like that and not pour beeswax all over to put it in the oven? So I got a piece of canvas here. Obviously this will make the fabric darker in color as it absorbs the oils. Okay, so let's let that sit for a while now and just kind of cure for a little bit. Okay, let's see if we get water repelling on this fabric or not. Both sides are pretty drenched. This has gone through a bit more, I'd say, on this side. This is not wet here. So the water definitely went through the other side on the non-treated fabric, and it's dry on the back side of this piece, so I mean that's pretty good. So yeah, I would definitely use this for like a fabric bag, a hat, something like that, maybe a jacket. Especially when you think about how clothes that have a protective water barrier, there's all kinds of flame retardants and chemicals and weird stuff. The one thing that I really like about our wax polish is that it's all natural. It's just oil and beeswax, and that is it. So there's nothing weird. I use wax polish quite a bit in the kitchen as well. I have a bunch of cutting boards, and every now and then they do need to be refinished. Wood naturally cracks and dries over time as you use it, right? So it's nice to finish your wooden cutting boards to make sure that they stay in good condition. Ideally you do this every couple of weeks or whenever you remember. And while we're in the kitchen, don't forget your spoons, your spatulas, your wooden chopsticks. All of those things also do much better when they're treated with some wax polish. If you are into making your own wooden screws, then wax polish will be the difference between the wood cracking and getting stuck and not, especially when it comes to the nut part. So I've made a bunch of different wooden screws, and when it becomes time to actually put the wooden screw into the wooden nut and move it, make sure to use a liberal amount of wax polish and things will go a lot smoother. Sometimes zippers get stuck and they don't want to move. Now, if you have a bag or a jacket that's particularly troublesome, get some mineral oil polish and apply some onto the zipper rails. Then you kind of just work it in and it will make it glide smoother, not get stuck as much. So I mentioned metal, and I bet you were thinking steel. However, you can also protect and kind of polish other metals such as brass, copper, aluminum. So for example, here we have my beautiful brass pencil case. It does get tarnished over time. So now you could either add some steel wool if you want to kind of polish it up even more, or just protect it with polish. Imagine you're out in the woods, you brought matches to make a nice fire, however they got wet in your bag because it is miserable outside. Now the matches are pretty much useless. So here's an idea. Before you go out, you coat a couple of matches in wax polish, protecting them against moisture. Let's try that. Have some water. Our waxy matches and put them in the water. And then they can hang out there for a little bit. Okay, these matches are nice and wet. Let's put them out. Also, let's do a control group. Let's put some regular matches in the water as well and see if we can light those. Okay, we have our wet, waxy matches. We'll just try. Ah! That worked! Let's try another one. And now it burns even better because of the wax. So kind of a nice tip if you're going camping and you want to make sure that your matches don't get wet, just have a little extra precaution. Coat a few of them in some wax polish before heading out. Okay, oh, let's try the control group, shall we? So we have our other wet matches that have been soaking. They are pretty wet. Concrete. This is a material that is pretty dry and brittle and can often use a protective coat of something. This works really great for wax polish. This is an egg cup. So you can see the kind of smooth and kind of matte color. Now this will instantly darken it and add quite a lot of protection. It's amazing how much this really goes into the concrete. Makes the surface feel quite a lot smoother. Material not that different from concrete is terracotta. This is a tip I was reading about, that if you want to reduce the water absorption of pots, of clay pots, you can put wax polish on it. So I have a nice little succulent here. So let's try that. I guess if you really wanted this to work great, you might want to do this before putting dirt in them and apply this on both sides of the pot. I do a fair amount of sewing, and when the thread comes apart, it can be really annoying to put it inside the needle. When I sew leather, I already buy waxed thread. And I know you can rub just a solid piece of beeswax over your thread to get it to that point. But what about taking this rather difficult piece of thread and getting it through here? Can we use wax polish for that as well? Okay, we'll get some on this thread. Whoops, I don't think we need that much. And there we go. So if you have an impossible piece of thread that you can't get through the needle hole, this is one way to do it. Along the same lines, if you have a rope or thicker thread and you don't want the edges to fray, you can do the same thing there. You can just put some wax polish and put it towards the ends and they will stay intact. Here's a useful tip. If you're looking to seal stone tile, wax polish works great. Here we heated some up and poured on our marble and granite chess table. We used the heat gun here to really bring the wax polish into the stone surface. And it worked quite well. After wiping it off, the surface is rich and matte, and this offers nice protection while being completely natural. Some of those were kind of interesting. I mean, I use this stuff all the time on, you know, on wood, on metal, on leather, just everyday type of stuff. But it's kind of interesting to try some of these new ones. Do you have another tip? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to pick up one of our wax polishes in times for the holiday, either for yourself or for somebody else, we have raw linseed, tung oil, mineral oil polish. We also have our wax pots. These are little wooden lidded grease pots, wax pots filled with mineral oil polish if you want to have a nice little wooden tin for your finish. But yeah, links to everything in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.